Living with the M4 iPad Pro has been a great experience so far, but it's clearly a weird device to feed around your tech ecosystem, or at least it is depending on the user that you are. Throughout my ownership for the last 9 months, I realized that it's an essential piece to my workflow, even now that I'm carrying the S25 Ultra that somewhat serves as a tablet thanks to the S Pen, and it gives me that high productivity feeling whenever I need it, but it doesn't really give me that iPad experience. Let me explain. As we're saying that the M4 iPad Pro still has the best display I've owned, and honestly, probably the best display I've ever experienced. Doing any type of color work or even watching movies in this display is an experience of its own. And the lightweight design makes it a very viable option if you want to work on the go without finding that excuse of carrying something big or heavy. But as we've discussed before, the true limitations of this incredible device is its operating system. I honestly think that if we had a better file management system for that true cross-device experience with the iPad and the MacBook, it will potentially make me use it more often. It's not that I don't use it often enough, but that specific limitation on how you manage your files from one device to the other is definitely a factor that makes me use the MacBook or the iPad for specific projects, because depending on the size of the project, that could be a limitation that I don't want to have or find any workaround when I have a device that works better for that specific case. And again, I don't mean that you don't have that cross-device workflow, but the Finders app clearly offers more control or managing, sorting, or manipulating files, which is more of a hindrance when it comes to bigger projects. However, I still think that it's a great complementary device that really puts a lot of value into my creative process. For example, scripting is one of the things I would say I use the iPad the most for, but where it truly shines is by drawing ideas or concepts that may end up in the video. For this, the Pencil Pro becomes very useful, mainly due to the new squeeze feature that allows you to switch brushes and navigate more utility features depending on the app you're using without having to lose sight of your work, creating a smoother experience when working without a keyboard. Obviously, navigating emails, signing documents, and editing photos are within the group of my most used features, but lately my iPad has turned into my main monitoring device when filming. On my FX3, I use the HoloLens Mars M1 Enhanced, and it has a very cool app that lets you connect your monitor and share its tools with your iPad, which is great for framing whenever I'm filming A-rolls or going for angles that need a bit more reference in order to match my vision, along with waveforms to make sure everything is exposed correctly. By having the beautiful colors and the tandem OLED display that the iPad has, it ensures me that everything that I'm seeing in that monitor, or at least in the iPad, is a great reference point on how the footage is gonna look after I move it down to DaVinci. Because the color accuracy is really important when it comes to filming, and I know for a fact that what the iPad gives me is as accurate as it gets. But to put it in better words, the iPad makes me do phone things a lot easier and laptop things faster, with the exception of editing videos, of course. You can surely do all the power-hungry activities here thanks to the M4 performance, but doing workarounds to force myself to use a less capable device, it's not necessarily something I strive to do. It's no different than going for a run in working shoes. You can certainly do it, and if you're fast, you can probably make a good time running, but you're going to destroy your feet for no reason. When it comes to performance, it's exactly what we expect from an M4 chip. Batch photo editing in Lightroom is incredibly smooth. Along with the Pencil Pro, it has become my favorite way to edit photos. As I said in other videos, Lightroom feels like it was made with iPad in mind, since from my experience, it's a device I enjoy using the most when it comes to photo editing. Video editing is also a viable option as power is never an issue. It's mostly the app not being fully optimized for iPad use. And guys, when I say all of that, I don't mean that the iPad Pro is not capable of heavy work, because it's definitely very capable. I feel like for me, it's more of a preference thing. You can definitely use DaVinci, you can use Final Cut here and have an incredible experience, but I rather use the app where it's best optimized on my MacBook, and mostly because I've been using it for a very long time and I'm very familiar with how to operate it very efficiently and quickly, something that I'm not necessarily the best when working heavy tasks on my iPad. That's why I like to do light tasks on my iPad, but again, like, there's many huge creators out there that use an iPad and an iPhone to do everything. So it's just preference. I highly recommend you to try it, because even for me using the MacBook, I love having my iPad with me and I always find a use for it, but it was something that I wanted to clarify. Another way to get an advantage of this incredible display is to use it along your MacBook whenever you're in need of using a secondary display on the go. It works incredibly well, and if you think you're gonna be using it often, I highly recommend you to go for the 13-inch display instead of the 11, which is the one that I have, because for some people it might be a little bit too small. Although for me, when it comes to using a secondary monitor on the go, having a smaller display is a convenience that I'd rather have than a bigger one, but I can see how the 13-inch could be potentially a better option for someone that uses this often. Now, the battery has been great for me, although I've seen some people having issues with this. Not sure why, because to me it has been easily a day and a half of battery life while using it with my my Pencil Pro and having it constantly connected with my Magic Keyboard, watching content, editing photos, and doing all the light work that I usually do on my iPad for my creative process. But in reality, I have no complaints. I know that the Pencil Pro can potentially affect your battery life because it's always dragging battery from your iPad since it's always charging, but it hasn't been a huge difference on my side. I mostly use my iPad Pencil Pro on at all times along with the keyboard, and I haven't got an issue with battery life. I mean, a day and a half seems to be more than enough for what I need, and if I need more, I can probably find a time to charge it during that time. But to conclude, I think that the M4 iPad Pro is the representation of where Apple tech is heading. An engineering masterpiece with incredible power at low energy cost. We're gonna start seeing more Apple products following this footprint. First, the new rumored iPhone 17 Air, and very likely with the new generation of MacBooks coming this year as well. But for those considering the M4 iPad Pro this year, I think you should give it a try. At times, I feel like the iPad is the most underrated Apple product at the moment, mostly because even if it can be a MacBook replacement for me, I'm sure it could be for many. Although it is a shame that it can't be used in clamshell mode like the MacBook does. However, something tells me that even if iPadOS remains as it is, the next generation will address most of these concerns, or at least I hope. The good thing is that this design is here to stay for a while, so buying it now will not make you regret your purchase, even if the M5 iPad Pro comes this year, as I don't think I've been close to reaching the top of what the M4 has to offer in a device like this. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Take care.
Tonight, I'm gonna take you out and